All right, we're back at it again. All right, seeing a place to be. Ric Serritella here, broadcasting live from the Jersey Shore around the NFL Draft Nick universe. That's right, we're going to chop it up and break it down. For the next hour of power or so, counting you down. 7 bowl games on the docket, but today we're going to preview the college football playoff bracket, and that's because we won't be on the air again until next Saturday. Of course, we got 4 big quarterfinal matchups kicking off on New Year's Eve. We'll go through the Cotton Bowl, Orange Bowl, Rose Bowl, Sugar Bowl. Man, these are some really locked and loaded, tough matchups. And of course, here on the NFL Draft Watch Show, we talk college football, but we do it with the keen focus on the NFL draft. We talk about top draft eligible prospects, what it means as we get closer, which we are now, unbelievable, 117 days away from destination Pittsburgh, and nobody's counting you down like NFL Draft Bible, allaccessfootball.com. We've got everything you need to know. Make sure you check it out, the headquarter page. We've got bowl game previews, prospect primers, all-star game trackers. The underclassmen watch now is up to, I think, 42 underclassmen who have declared. Of course, January 14th is the underclassmen deadline. January 23rd, if you make the FBS championship game, and we're just tracking it all. And we'll be on location across the nation at all of the all-star games, including the College Gridiron Showcase. We'll be at the Hula Bowl, and then the FCS Combine will also be on location for the inaugural American Bowl, and then the East-West Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl, the NFL Scouting Combine, the Pro Day Trails. We have boots on the ground analysis over at allaccessfootball.com. So we appreciate the love and support. Hopefully you all had a very Merry Christmas, and we're counting you down to a happy 2026 New Year. It is our 24th year of providing independent analysis. I can't believe it is the 24th draft cycle that we've been doing this. And so here we are now, breaking it down, chopping it up. Shout out to all the listeners out there. We appreciate all the comments, feedback, interaction. And hey, each and every week we're here live, 10 a.m. Eastern. But enough about me. I'm only one half of the show. Ric Serritella here, you out there. My co-host each and every Saturday is a former scout for the Cleveland Browns, the St. Louis Rams. Of course, he cut his teeth way back when with the UCLA Bruins on the college landscape. He's also experienced in the Canadian Football League, having worked for several organizations north of the border. And it's cold here in Jersey. I'm sure it's very cold up north to our friends in Canada. Of course, also part of the original XFL. In fact, one of the few people to have scouting experience in the NFL, CFL, XFL. We're so lucky to have him each and every week here. My co-host, Russ Lande, joining the show right now. How we doing, Russ?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful 40-degree day here in Chicago, so I got to be excited.
That is a beautiful day for Chi-Town, especially this time of the year. And seems like you guys were spared the snow there in Chicago. We got half a foot up north in Jersey. Now we're in the confines of the Jersey Shore and back on the beach. And we're back talking college football, the college football playoff, that is, Russ. Some good matchups last week, some lopsided matchups. I think the week ahead with these 4 matchups, I mean, these are going to be some hard games to pick. We're going to do our best to give some predictions, but more importantly, we're going to talk NFL draft analysis, what it all means for draft stock, especially with some of these signal callers in action. And I think just looking back at the first round, you take a look at some of the teams that advanced, Russ. The common denominator was the better quarterback play seems to advance. And I think that might be common as we move through this college football playoff bracket.
And I think when you look at the first games that we saw, it was better quarterback. And I don't want to be mean or rude, but in terms of when Tulane and James Madison got out there, it was just also overall talent. I mean, to me, it wasn't really a comparable basis of the war in the trenches was sort of slanted in both games significantly. But yeah, I mean, even Carson Beck, who Miami struggled all game to consistently move the ball and score, he was efficient in most situations. He didn't put the ball in the opponent's hands. Whereas A&M's quarterback, while clearly a more dynamic athlete with a big arm, made some throws that you can't make. And that's part of his being a second-year starter, whereas Carson Beck has been playing, it seems like, for 10 years in college football. So he doesn't make throws that you should make. And so, yeah, a great example is exactly what you're talking about. Quarterbacks with experience who avoid mistakes win games, and especially in key situations. So, yeah, I think all those games were sort of, to me, almost as predicted. There was nothing that jumped out like, oh my God, this is a huge stunner. The big question to me is, how good is Ty Simpson? That to me is the big debate. You watch that game and you really come away thinking he's not ready to really challenge to be a starting guy at the next level. Right now, when I look at him, I think, is this guy more of a backup guy? And I think
Mhm.
why he not only is this game coming up huge when they go against Indiana, but I think it's even more, is he wiser to stay another year in college? Because I spoke to some scouts this week. There are some that really like him. I think he's got a chance in the first round. There's a bunch of scouts that think this guy's more of a backup guy in the NFL. He's more of a third to fifth round guy. And if that's your situation, third or fourth round, why wouldn't you go back for another year, get paid, and give yourself a chance to improve? Because we all know that number, 13, 13 college starts. Well, he's under that now.
Yeah.
Give him another year, give him another chance, get paid for another year. To me, that would be his best opportunity, not so much for making money in the next 5 years, but potentially having a longer career as a professional quarterback.
Yeah, valid points. I mean, the flashes are certainly there, and I think
No
that's
doubt.
kind of the polarizing projection, right? Because you compare him to the other potential signal callers in this year's draft. Well, the more you stack him side by side against some of these other quarterbacks, you're saying, hey, well, maybe we can work with this.
Mm-hmm.
And the lack
It's
of,
very true.
yeah. And the lack of experience is certainly going to be an issue and a big problem, especially for the older scouts, such as, I guess, you and myself. But, we're going to get into all that as we get through the show. We'll take them one at a time as they are going to kick off in chronological order. So,
The one thing I just want to throw out, I know older guys like me and you mentioned the 24 years. Now we have gray hair to show it.
yeah,
But I think the interesting part of when I talk about experience in 13 games is this has always been like hey, scouts think you need 2 or 3 years. And Bill Parcells with his famous 3 years of starting in college. But all the younger people coming into the business now that are not on the football side so much, they may have grown up on the data analytics side and they're now learning the football side. The analytics prove that out even more, which is guys who don't start many games in college don't succeed at the pro level for a variety of reasons. So I think it's both the old people who watch the film and sort of have these old beliefs, but also the data that shows that starting games in college, especially a second year, we get to work through the defense really changing to adjust to you as a player. That to me, I think, is the big challenge a guy like Simpson might have is only having 1 year in college. Both the old people and the analytics point to you struggling to be a successful starter at the next level. Maybe a long career backup, but a successful starter, it's a very challenging job at the next level.
we got it all over here on the NFL Draft Watch Show. We got the eye test, the analytics, Russ Lande, Ric Serritella, each and every Saturday. Let's kick it off, Russ. The Cotton Bowl, I love these New Year's Eve games because a lot of them really go off right around midnight uh, in terms of the finish. And we've had some classic finishes in recent years. This game kicks off December 31st, 7:30 p.m. Miami Hurricanes, Ohio State Buckeyes. You mentioned it. It was a slobber knocker affair between the Hurricanes and the Aggies down there. Texas A&M with a tough defense. And Miami's offense struggled down there to the end. And I talked about it last week. I felt like Malachi Tony was going to be the best player on the field. The end around reverse touchdown near the end of the game. He ultimately did put the Hurricanes over the top. But you mentioned Carson Beck and the accuracy and a couple things, the experience. Here's a man who is 35-5 as a starter for his career. Now, the other interesting thing when I take a look at Carson Beck is 60% of his passes travel less than 5 yards. And I don't want to say he's become somewhat of a Charlie check down, but the offense in Coral Gables that he's running is a much different offense than the one he ran in Athens. And Georgia, I think he was asked to air it out a little bit more, push the ball downfield, put the offense a little bit more on his back. Miami, we saw it. I mean, Mark Fletcher carried that offense. They're going to need Fletcher to carry the offense again against Ohio State. But if they're going to knock off the Buckeyes, Beck's going to have to take some chances downfield and show that he can make the big play.
Well, I think there's no doubt. I think that's the thing I wanted to see in the A&M game was I want to see him push some angles, force some balls that not force balls into bad spots, but force some balls where the defense was put the pressure on them. Force that safety to get there faster on the outside and too deep and stuff like that. I will say part of what you have to sort of like is, yes, you can say Charlie check down or whatever you want to call it, but there is some maturity there for Beck because early in his career, he was more of I'm throwing this ball down the field. I'm making big plays all the time. So at least now you see that he's learned a little bit about don't put the ball in bad spots, be efficient. I spoke to a scout this week, and we specifically talked about Beck, and he said the frustrating part when you watch this kid is he said there's no doubt physically he's as good as an NFL starter, physically throwing the ball, movement ability for a big, tall kid. He said there's everything there physically. He said you just don't see it consistently. And he said those are the guys that often end up slipping in the draft because coaches and scouts get nervous about why has this guy been a 3-4 year starter and he hasn't gotten better at consistency. So that's the concern teams have. But talent-wise, and I think although there were questions about all the stuff maturity-wise early in his career, I think a lot of what you've seen in terms of how he's matured on the field, how he's played more consistently, I think that eases some of those concerns for NFL teams. Very interesting kid. But I will mention there are a few other guys that you had mentioned early in the season that really, to me, had big games. I mean, the Keelan Marion kid from UConn. I mean, he was not making game-changing like 60-yard plays, but he made 3 or 4 key third down plays where he took a 5-yard catch, turned it into a 6-yard first down, or whatever it may have been. And the other kid, the one that you've been literally hyping since almost before the season, and the only reason is because he played at Jersey School Rutgers, is the Toure kid. I mean, you talk about a kid that had a great game. I mean, he showed the ability, and I think you had mentioned that Coach Shiano had said this kid's one of those freak talents athletically. Yeah. He showed it this game. There were a few plays where, and one of the things as people learn about this business, when you watch a linebacker, one of the great ways to evaluate their speed is when they're actually on the back side of the play when the play starts and the ball goes away from them, the guys that can track it down before the ball breaks the line of scrimmage, that's when you know you have a rare guy speed-wise, a rare explosive speed. And he showed explosion throughout this game that not many college players have. I was really impressed with it. And then again, they have the kid that everybody's talking about, the black kid, I think is his last name, that everybody's saying is the top pass rusher. But again, Mesidor, the kid from Canada, he had a really good game. He may not be
he sure did, man.
He was everywhere. He was running around. I mean, this is a kid that I think when the season began, a lot of people were talking about, well, he's Canadian. He'll probably be a CFL guy, maybe an undrafted free agent. I think he has put a clear stamp in that he's going to be drafted, and I think he's going to be drafted before the end of the first 100 picks. This kid's ability to defeat blocks, get pressure, he's impressive, and he doesn't take plays off. He is really competitive. I was very impressed with Miami overall. I would have liked to have seen, like you said, Beck take a few more gambles because their offense definitely looked like it struggled. That running back, holy smokes. Now, he's a legitimate guy. He can make the cut. He's got the twitch. He's got the burst. He's a legit, I think, guy that has to be considered, maybe not early in the NFL draft, but he is going to be an NFL running back.
Well, he did come out, I think, a day or two ago and saying he is going to return next year. So for me, this is a game after last week's performance where Fletcher now can kind of springboard some momentum into next season where, you know, he's probably somewhere in that mid-round range right now. But, hey, he comes back. This offense revolves around him next year. He can probably improve his draft stock. And in many different instances, it's a showcase game for Fletcher for next season. But to your point, it's a showcase game for Beck for the draft evaluators. And it's also a showcase game for Francis Malagoa, who some people think is the top offensive tackle. And he's going to have his hands full against a Ohio State defensive line where the backups are like all Americans, Russ. And you talk about Caden Curry and Caden McDonald and Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese. I mean, I think this game comes down to which team can apply more pressure on the quarterback, because on the Miami side, you mentioned Messidor and Bain. Well, to me, and Torre in the second level, and then Keontae Scott is a nice playmaker in the secondary. You just wonder, can these guys generate enough pressure? And Julian saying really hasn't been rattled. And you talk about complete. I mean, this guy's completing, I think, 78% of his passes, which is just unheard of. But you wonder, he's almost like a mini Drew Brees back there in the pocket. But you wonder, can Bain and Messidor create enough pressure to rattle saying, throw him off this game, keep this game close in the end, and maybe they get a Malachi Tony punt return, special teams, turnover late in the game. I think as long as the Hurricanes can keep this game close, I would not be surprised if they actually do indeed pull off the upset here, Russ.
Well, firstly, a few things. In terms of Fletcher, I know we said like he's coming back. If he has a big game against Ohio State, I honestly think it might be time to, hey, he's had 800 yards last year. He's at 850 now. You're talking, we all know, tread on the tires, running backs. Get in as soon as you can. Even if he's a fourth or a fifth round pick, you get on an NFL roster. You get to prove yourself. It might be time to make that move if I were recommending to him based on that. Talent-wise, he's an NFL guy. But I agree with you. The key for this game to me is going to be, can Miami's offensive line, which has the two tackles, Bell, who to me is a little bit inconsistent, the other kid, yeah, no doubt one of the best in the country, and some veteran interior guys, can they hold up to Ohio State's just ridiculous defense? Their defensive line, along with the two linebackers, Styles and Reese, who they don't blitz a ton, but when they do, they're challenged to pass block when you have to deal with Caden Curry and McDonald and Kenyatta Jackson and one after the other. That's going to be the big challenge in this game. So if Ohio State isn't able to shut down Miami and crush that offensive line, I do think it's going to be a very close game, because I think Sayin played well this year, but recently he's had a few games where he wasn't dominant. He was okay. That Indiana game, he was okay, but he also missed some throws. He got a little rushed and pressured. So I think if Miami can keep Carson Beck clean, I think this will be a close game, but I will say it is going to be a challenge, because as we've talked about, every time we've talked about Ohio State, I can't remember a defense with this many guys who can beat offensive linemen, and not just beat them. I'm not saying just whip them and beat them clean, but just over the course of the game, wear people out, tire guys out. And then when you have Styles and Reese that you can bring off the edges, that can cover guys, I mean, it's really tough to be successful. Think about it. Indiana is the number one team in the country, the best quarterback in the country, and they basically won a game because Ohio State made some miscues, because they couldn't move the ball consistently against Ohio State, and that's the number one team in the country. So, I mean, it tells you how loaded they are on defense, what a great job their front office has done at Ohio State of bringing in just ridiculous talent year after year.
It's crazy because we didn't even mention arguably the best player
Downs.
in college football, Caleb Downs. They got. I mean, they could have top 10 picks. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Sonny Styles is top 10. Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles will compete for the number one overall pick. And I'll even throw Carnell Tate on the offensive side of the ball, who we didn't mention yet. I mean, those are four guys on the Ohio State team that could potentially go, never mind the first round. They could all go inside potentially the top 10. And, you know, listen, I think that Ohio State's got to be careful here with the freshman quarterback.
Yep.
I'm going to go Buckeyes here, Russ, 20-13. You have a prediction on the Cotton Bowl?
I'm going to definitely take the Buckeyes. I do think it's going to be lower scoring than we anticipate, because I do think Miami's defense is better than people give it credit for, especially with Bain and Messidor there. But in the end, I think it'll be something like 23-16, 23-17,
Yeah.
which means most likely that Ohio State will either win by 40 or Miami's going to win because I never predict games correctly.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll get a blowout here in the quarterfinal, but you never know. Ohio State's definitely capable. They have explosive weapons. We mentioned Tate, Jeremiah Smith, and then Max Clare, the tight end, with Kazmarek, the 1-2 combination. All right, he's Russell Lande. I'm Ric Serritella. We're breaking it down. We're chopping it up. We're talking college football playoff quarterfinal prospect primer preview. We just broke it down, the New Year's Eve affair, Cotton Bowl. Number 10, Miami. Number 2, Ohio State. We both like the Buckeyes in a close one. Let's move over to New Year's Day, Russ. The Orange Bowl is going to kick us off. Noon Eastern time, January 1st. Oregon at Texas Tech. Maybe the most evenly contest in terms of this matchup here. And, somebody mentioned it's the Nike money versus new money. And I think Texas Tech, if they could overcome Oregon here, would be announcing themselves, I believe, as a new blue blood kind of program in terms of the NIL, what they're spending, the results on the field. And again, quarterbacks are going to have a big factor in this matchup. And Oregon, really, the only blemish on the resume this year came against the number 1 seed Indiana Hoosiers in a close matchup between Mendoza and Dante Moore. Indiana came out on top. Otherwise, Oregon ran the table in all their other matchups. Texas Tech, they've been sitting around for about a month, Russ. Let me ask you, are they going to be rusty or well rested? Oregon, they come off that romp over James Madison. Texas Tech's been kind of hanging out for the month, getting ready. Does that factor into the equation?
Well, I think it definitely does. I mean, historically, when teams sit for a while, the first quarter of the game can often either, if they can hold it together, it provides a springboard for the second quarter to the end of the game to demolish a team, or that first quarter can go really bad. I have a feeling Texas Tech is going to probably fall behind a little bit early because I think Oregon's going to come out sort of firing on all cylinders. But I do think it's an interesting matchup because, again, we talk about O-line. Oregon's offensive line is a very stable group, a lot of veteran guys. So I think that's going to help them right off the bat. To me, the quarterback, it's such a unique comparison because Dante Moore is he's what you draw up if you draw up a quarterback to be a pro. He's a smart kid. He's matured, having gone through the UCLA situation, coming back to Oregon. Good size, athletic, big arm, can make all the throws. And when he's on, he's phenomenal. And then you have the Morton kid at Texas Tech, sort of the overlooked guy, not really the guy you chisel out of marble, but all he does is win. He's a better athlete than he gets credit for. He's efficient. He makes smart decisions. I think this is going to be a really close game when it comes down to it. I just think the key is going to be for Oregon, don't let that first quarter go to waste. They have to take advantage of the fact that Texas Tech has not played in a while. The first 2 or 3 series, Texas Tech is going to be feeling their way getting back out on the field because we both have been doing this a long time. And I don't care how hard you practice your guys, how hard you work them. Practice never is the same as in-game. Those first 2 series, the speed of Oregon, that big offensive line, how is Texas Tech going to handle it? That, to me, is the big challenge because I think once you get beyond that, if Oregon doesn't get ahead, I think Texas Tech will win this game, and I don't think it'll be close. I really think they are more talented overall, especially defensively. They have a lot of guys that can get after the ball. I think it's going to be a really good game. I can't wait to see these 2 quarterbacks play. I think it's going to be such a good contrast of looking at 2 totally different quarterbacks. I think this is going to be a heck of a game.
Yeah, I think for me, the question is going to be how does the Oregon offensive line handle the Texas Tech D-line? Because we just mentioned Ohio State. Believe it or not, this Texas Tech defensive line might actually be better when you talk about David Bailey and Romello Height coming from the edge. And then Lee Hunter is just a monster in the middle. I mean, every time I watch the Red Raiders, this Lee Hunter just continues to grow on me. And this is one of the players I'm probably maybe the most excited to see down in Mobile because I think he's going to have a monster week at the Senior Bowl. I think he could have a big day here against Oregon. But you talk about the pressure, and Dante Moore thrives under pressure, but he's going to be under constant duress. They're going to be coming from the edges. They're going to be coming up the middle. And then, oh, by the way, to me, Jacob Rodriguez is the X factor. Like him and Ben Roberts back there. But you talk about 7 forced fumbles for Rodriguez. I think 3 interceptions, a pick 6 interception for a return touchdown. I mean, 117 tackles, I think, something to that effect. This defense is going to be swarming the Oregon quarterback. And I know the Ducks are holding out hope they might get back Evan Stewart, one of the fastest players in the nation. He got hurt way back in the spring, but that would be somebody who can stretch the defense, test the Red Raiders. Malik Benson is a guy who I think is a late round gem, a triple transfer, been around, journeyman guy. So they have some weapons, the Oregon offense. And you talk about Noah Whittingham. He's been a workhorse back there. And then Jordan Davison, who's just got a true nose for the end zone, sniffs out pay dirt. Kenyon Sadiq, we talked about a 23.5 miles per hour on the catapult in-game speed. So the Oregon offense is going to have to be on point, early, often, and effective.
And the guy that neither of us mentioned in this whole discussion, it really is. I mean, I think Alex Harkey, we know what he is. He's not going to probably be unbelievably dominant, but he's not going to be bad. He's going to be solid, good every snap. Pregnon's going to be solid. To me, the big question in this game is going to be Isaiah World. Yeah. Because he is, we know, talent-wise, pure just size and feet, he's an elite guy. But in terms of technique and production, there are games he looks like a guy that shouldn't even get a chance in the NFL. There's other games he looks like a guy that should be a high draft pick. How he steps up and plays, if he can be consistent and keep Dante Moore protected, that to me is the most important player on the offense. Because if he has a bad game, I think it's over. Because if he struggles, they will attack and attack and attack, and Dante Moore will have, we talk about they have to find a way to keep him up. World to me is the key, because if World starts to struggle, then they have to help him, and then all of a sudden every other guy's getting free runs one-on-one. Whereas if World steps up, has a good game, then they have a guy, one or two, they can swing to help everybody who needs help. So to me, he's the key guy, because the consistency has not been there this year that we expected based on what he did last year and what he flashed last year.
Yeah, he's going to have his hands full. Probably the toughest matchup for him of the season. Now, they do have Emmanuel Pregnon, our number 2 rated guard, next door. And then Iapani, the center, who's announced he is coming back. He'll be one of the top center prospects for the 2027 NFL draft. He, along with Bear Alexander, the defensive tackle, announced they're going to return. Of course, they have the edge rushers and Matayo Ugalele, Tatum Tuatu. You mentioned Bryce Bochter, I think, is going to be a special teams ace at the next level. Dylan Thieneman on the back end. I think he lacks a little bit of strength for me. I question whether he can be an in-the-box safety type at the next level. I think he's going to be more of a roaming center fielder type, but he does make some tackles. However, I have seen him get bullied a little bit there when coming up to make a play. Texas Tech, they've got some weapons too between Reggie Virgil, Caleb Douglas, Coy Eakin. Like, Morton's going to spread the ball around, and that Dickey, he's been a kind of revelation in the backfield, the sophomore running back for Texas Tech. But again, I think it all points towards the Texas Tech defense. The Red Raiders are going to swarm. And with that being said, I think this one's going to be a little bit high scoring. I'm going to go Texas Tech 30, Oregon 27 in another close affair. Russ, how do you see it?
I think it might even be a little bit more. I mean, I know this is going to sound crazy. I think it's going to be like 37-24 Texas Tech. And it's funny because we talk about Oregon's offensive line needing to step up. When you look at Texas Tech, they have their offensive line, they have a good, solid O-line. None of these guys are really people thinking elite prospects for the next level. But what they are is they're a little bit like Harkey, maybe not as good as Harkey, but a little bit in that they're consistent. And and you and I know we've been doing that. I always say this like 20 times per show. We've been doing this forever, as our gray hair shows.
Yeah.
But when you talk to coaches at the NFL level, especially O-line, but really any coach, they will almost always trade talent for consistency. And when you look at Texas Tech's O-line, they may not have the most talented guys, but pretty much every snap you get the same exact thing from their offensive line. They don't make blatant mistakes. They stay over their feet. They do their jobs. They're in the right position. And I think that's going to bode well for them against Oregon. So I think Texas Tech's going to score. I think Morton's going to have a better game than people expect. There's something about that kid. He's got a knack. I think I mentioned that last week. There's a little Taylor Heineke in this kid. I think he's going to have a very good game. And I think this will be a game where Dante Moore makes some plays that say, I can be a top of the draft guy. And he's also going to have some where you go, whew, he needs more time in school. And I think Moore will be beneficial to stay one more year in college. And he will next year challenge to be a top guy, if not the top guy in the draft.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that Dante Moore is going to declare now. I think in recent weeks, the rumblings or the writing has kind of been on the wall. If you just kind of read the tea leaves, like I saw now, he's doing his first charity event. He's got a foundation, and usually you're trying to do those things, to kind of show your image as you transition to the next level, getting into the community and doing stuff off the field. I mean, you're in the middle of the college football playoff. If you weren't turning pro, why would you be going through all these motions and process? But he is Russ Lande. I am Ric Serritella. We appreciate all the love and support. Good to see the chat room. Our good friend Stretch is in the chat room representing Jersey. He says Ohio State 20-16 and Texas Tech 42-40 on a missed 2-point conversion. We'd love to get your opinions and predictions, so feel free to share them with us throughout the show. We got 2 games in the can, 2 games to go. We just previewed the Cotton Bowl and the Orange Bowl. The second game on New Year's Day, Russ, is the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl. And you got number 9 Alabama. You kind of got to do a double take, right? Number 9 Alabama, number 1 Indiana. And again, these college football playoffs, we got some new teams in the dance. Indiana, Kirk Cignetti was asked about his big win over Ohio State. Doesn't count for nothing if you don't run the table. And I think Indiana is on a mission here. Amazingly, like when you stack up these 2 rosters side by side, I would give the edge to Indiana in terms of more overall talent. I think they also have better chemistry. And again, a lot of this is going to come down to the quarterbacks. You alluded to it briefly at the top of the show, but we just mentioned Dante Moore. If anybody else was going to contend with Fernando Mendoza in this year's draft class, it would be Ty Simpson. And here he is now as he goes up against Mendoza mano a mano in the college football playoff quarterfinal. What a stage.
It's a huge stage. And I think one of the things that you point out, it's so interesting. When I look at Indiana and Alabama, you say Indiana probably has a more talented roster. And I agree, top to bottom, their first 30, probably better in terms of consistency and stuff. But I think if you pick out 3 or 4 guys, other than Mendoza, there's 3 or 4 guys in Alabama that are going to go before anybody else on Indiana after Mendoza. And I think that's what's so interesting, because we know Bernard's going to be likely a first, if not a high second-round pick. Caden Proctor, their offensive tackle, L.T. Overton, and Damani Jackson. All 4 of these guys are likely first or high second-rounders. And when you look at Indiana, they've got obviously Mendoza, but then they have a handful of guys like Aiden Fisher, D'Angelo Pounds, Elijah Surratt. Are they really going to press to be first? I don't know. I think they're more second to third round type guys, especially for a guy like Pounds at 5'8". He's going to have to murder the spring to realistically get into that top 2 rounds, because teams don't like short corners. So it's very interesting. I think when you look at Indiana, they are so well coached. They are so fundamentally sound. they actually remind me a lot of what Alabama was for many years when Coach Saban was there. Is they had a lot of guys that may not become elite NFL guys, but they're so well coached and so fundamentally sound that they constantly beat opponents up and win games in college. I think this is going to be an excellent game, but I will say I do think Indiana wins this game. I don't think it's going to come down to the wire. I think Simpson did not have a great game in their win last weekend. In the opening round of the playoffs, I think this is going to be a big challenge for them. I think they're going to be able to get some pressure, just like they did when they played Ohio State. I think Indiana's going to get pressure on him, and I think you're going to see some of that first-year starter issues that always pop up with quarterbacks that are young and in their first year and starting when they get pressured. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, but I think Indiana's going to win this one.
Yeah, it's interesting too because you think of the quarterbacks in this matchup, but I think the running game is going to have a huge factor because you take a look at Alabama, they just could not get the run game going at all last week.
Yeah, there's no question. There were what, 3 big runs I think they had.
Yeah.
Jam Miller and the other kid had 3 big runs, and other than that, it was basically like
25 carries for like 28 yards, and on the opposite end of the spectrum, like I don't know how many people realize this, but Indiana actually runs the ball 55% of the time. And they got a two-headed backfield like Roman Hemby. We've talked about it. Kalen Black.
Yep.
Like this is a dynamic duo in the backfield. And you're right. Surratt, Cooper. Surratt's more the possession guy. Cooper's more the deeper guy. So they do have some weapons. Alabama, like they really need Ryan Williams. He's been on the back of a milk carton all season. I think Ryan Williams is the X factor of this game because if he can actually give Ty Simpson another legitimate weapon with the tight end coming back, Josh Cuevas, Jeremy Bernard is a weapon, gadget type, and Isaiah Horton's capable of making big plays. They had the freshman last week coming up big in the clutch. But to me, Ryan Williams is the X factor because he's flashed first-round talent. We just haven't seen it this year.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that it's Williams, and to me, it's like that game, the game they just won. Bernard made some of the biggest plays of the game, but other than those 2 or 3 giant plays, he was almost non-existent. So I'm almost looking for like, hey, they need to find a way. They need to scheme him into some open opportunities because he's the type of guy, talent-wise. And when you watch him, he seems to be an ultra competitive player. He's the type of guy that could provide those 2 or 3 big plays in a close game that could make a difference. And you mentioned Hemby and the black kid, the running attack that Indiana has. The unheralded guy to me that makes that offense in terms of the running game go is their fullback, H-back tight end, Nowakowski. I mean, this kid, he's a violent lead blocker.
Yeah.
And the thing that people don't understand, he's also got really good hands. So they use him as a weapon when they do play action, when they do run action plays. He's able to get through the line and catch short passes. He's another offensive lineman. When he pulls, he's really adds a dimension to that offense. So they don't always have to pull a lineman. They can move him pre-snap and he can set up. I mean, he really does a lot for that offense. And I think that's going to be a challenge for Alabama because they have a lot of defensive linemen that are really good, but a lot of them are bigger guys. They're not the 220s. So a 260 or 270 is going to have a hard time getting outside of a guy like Nowakowski if he has the initial position. So I think it's going to be a real challenge for Alabama to slow down the Indiana rushing attack. I think it's going to be a heck of a game. But like I said, I do think Indiana comes away with this win.
Yeah, and I should mention, I heard LT Overton is nursing some kind of injury, may not play. Obviously, that'll be a big loss. Tim Keenan, we've seen him come up big on special teams, the defensive tackle for Alabama. And then Yanze Pierre, the redshirt sophomore, has kind of catapulted himself as one of the premier edge rushers. Deontay Lawson, very experienced linebacker back there, along with Justin Jefferson. Bray Hubbard, a lot of people think could be a day 2 draft selection on the Alabama defense. And Indiana, I mean, unfortunately, they're not going to have Stephen Daly, who hurt himself celebrating after the Big Ten championship. That's a big loss for them, but they do have Mikhail Kamara, Aiden Fisher. I mean, nobody, I think, has sung more praise for Aiden Fisher than the 2 of us right here on this show. And, to me, I'm going to go Indiana as well, Russ, and another close game. And like I said, I think they can all be close matchups. I've got Indiana 27-23.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at it, I think it's going to be close. I agree. I tend to lean a little bit more towards like 24-13. I think Alabama's really going to have some offensive struggles in this game.
All right, there you have it. Russ Lande, Ric Serritella breaking it down, chomping it up. We got 3 games down, 1 game to go. We're talking college football playoff quarterfinals with a keen focus on the NFL draft eligible prospects, what it means for the draft stock. We've got just a couple weeks to go until the underclassmen deadline, and a lot of these games could have an impact on whether players decide to dip their toes into the draft pool or return for another year. And we got one more game on New Year's Day, 8 p.m., the Sugar Bowl. It's going to be an SEC affair when number 6 Ole Miss faces number 3 Georgia. And, this one, again, you talk about the quarterbacks. They're going to have a lot of to say about this because Gunnar Stockton, Trinidad Chambliss, they don't get talked about in terms of being NFL draft prospects. But they both bring different kinds of experience. Chambliss, of course, from Ferris State Division II championship. Austin Simmons goes down week 3. In steps Chambliss, who's, by the way, is waiting to hear back from the NCAA for his eligibility waiver as he applied for another year. If not, he'll wind up in this year's draft. And Gunnar Stockton, really, Russ, is just a gamer, tough, hard-nosed runner, can make the throws that he needs to steer the ship in terms of that Bulldog offense. I hear they may be getting Colby Young back at wide receiver, who I'm a big fan of, big hands catcher, possession wide out, yards after catch, tackle breaking ability. But Ole Miss, they've got a chip on their shoulder, and they average 500 yards a game on offense. I mean, that is a high octane offense, but if anybody can stop it, it's Kirby Smart and the Bulldogs.
This to me is going to be a very interesting game because you mentioned Chambliss and Stockton. To me, I think Chambliss, we've talked about it before, he may not be an NFL starter type, but I think he's got the tools to play at the NFL level. I don't know if Stockton has the tools to even be in the NFL. When I watch him play, I'm really questioning his just talent to be a productive guy. I thought one of the most interesting things in their game that they won was the guy all year we've been saying has not been doing a lot, has not been as productive as we thought, Dylan Bell, because he's the most talented guy in terms of offense. And what did they do? They got him at running back at some of the plays in that game. He looked like the guy we expected. And I think in this game, if he is healthy, which he seems to be, and they use him like that, I think he could end up being the difference in this game. Because I think in that game last week, he showed a lot of the talent, that twitchiness, that explosion through the hole, which is something you don't often see for receivers, but they used him as a running back receiver. He, to me, is going to be the key on offense for this game because Georgia's offense has not been a dominant group this year. They have been an up and down offense that has struggled to consistently put up big points. I think if Dylan Bell is back to being what we expected before the season, I think he will be a huge factor in this game. I think Ole Miss is going to be what they are. I mean, they're efficient. Chambliss is a really good college quarterback. I think they have the Stribling and Wallace, their weapons on offense. They've got some guys. Their offensive line is good. And I will tell you, their defense may not have a lot of guys that you're talking about as premier rare guys in terms of draft this year, because most of their guys are younger underclassmen like sophomores and juniors. But I'll tell you one thing, they have speed on defense. These guys can go sideline to sideline. You're not going to get a lot of big plays on this defense because they have guys who can track you down. So I think it's going to be a very close game. If I were to bet, I actually think Ole Miss wins this game, but I think the X factor is going to be Dylan Bell. How well he plays, to me, will be the deciding factor. If he has a big game, Georgia wins easy. If he has an average game like he has a lot of this season, 40, 50, 60 total combined yards, rushing, receiving, I think Ole Miss wins this game.
Yeah, it feels like there's something magical brewing out of Oxford, with this team and the edge, the chip on the shoulder. It's like, our head coach abandoned us. We're out here on a mission. And I like the momentum they have. Now, defense, Xavier Harris is a monster in the middle. He's going to gobble up double teams and let guys like Prince Will Umanellan run wild. Suntarine Perkins came on in recent weeks. He's been getting into the backfield, and he has to be accounted for. But you mentioned the offense. And to me, you mentioned Stribling and Wallace. Deuce Alexander's a redshirt sophomore. I don't think he comes out for the draft, but that's somebody you want to keep an eye on for next year.
Yeah.
And then the tight end mismatch, Daquan Wright. He's more of like an back guy, I think, at the next level, but he's a mismatch. And I know Kawan Lacey is banged up. He's been really a bell cow runner, one of the most impressive runners in college football this season. I think how healthy he is could hinder, that offense a little bit. For Georgia, you did a good job touching base. Zachariah Branch is a guy I think I'm still going to put as a dark horse candidate for round one just because of the speed. And
he's twitchy. I mean,
yeah, he's just the burst acceleration. He is juicy, man. He's
the only thing that I wonder, and tell me if it's just me. I know they've got the 5'9", 175. I really wonder if this guy's that big. I mean, he looked right. I mean, he looks almost like 5'7" and change when you watch him out there. I mean, his ability to make cuts though, and
it's like Deshaun Jackson.
It's just like Deshaun Jackson. I mean, he puts one foot, he explodes through holes, and it's almost like God. He's one of those few guys that when you watch him, he almost makes you shudder because you don't expect a guy. There's so few college players that just go by people. Most guys in the P4, even the fast guys, they're fast, but they don't separate in terms of they're as fast as everybody else. He's one of the few guys you see him, you go, oh, he's fast. Like he separates speed-wise from everybody else. Really interesting guy, and I know he's a one-year guy at Georgia, but there's something about him. I'm glad you brought him up because every time I've seen him, I think, who is this kid? Because I think if he's too small for the NFL, they could bring him up. He could be a Hall of Fame player up in the CFL. I'm always thinking Canadian League, sadly.
Yeah, no, I think Zachariah Branch is a guy like, and I'd be a little bit hesitant to use a first round pick on a guy who just touches the ball, if you're lucky, 5 times a game.
Yeah.
But he only needs one touch to make the difference in a game. And to me, that's a rare talent. He'll probably be the fastest guy on the field. We mentioned this Bulldog defense, Christian Miller up front, a day 2 guy, CJ Allen on the second level, probably a first round guy. And then Dalen Everett, probably another guy that's going to be right in around the top 100 overall mix. So, the one guy I was going to say, Monroe Freeling, keep an eye on the left tackle, number 57. He's somebody who could declare and also work his way into the first round mix. There's a lot of love for him. We mentioned during the screen, the right tackle, he's had some back issues that he's been dealing with, always an issue. And then Oscar Delp, the tight end, also deserves a mention. I don't have an updated status on Jam Miller, the running back. He's been on again, off again, banged up throughout. And in terms of a prediction here, I have trouble picking against Kirby Smart in these kind of matchups and these spots and just the experience and the culture. But I think Ole Miss is on a magical, mystical run for at least another week. And I'm gonna go Ole Miss here. I'm gonna go 27-23, and just another close game, Russ. All these games I figure to be very close.
And the thing, and firstly, I'm right there with you. It's hard to go against Kirby Smart. I've never met him in all my time covering the country, but everybody raves about him as a person, as a coach. He's been impressive. I think the thing that to me gets overlooked with Ole Miss, you talk about a magical season, and I think all those players, they were all excited. The season begins, and Lane's their coach. Publicly, we can hear all we want, but I'm sure there are people in that room that are pissed off that he jumped ship and went to LSU and didn't finish it out. And even if he says he wanted to stay and all that, there I'm sure are players that said, hey, then you shouldn't have taken the job. You told us to come here. We're playing for you. I think they're going to come out with a chip on their shoulder, wanting to win it for Golding, the new head coach there. I think they're going to come out and play the best game of the year. So I do think Ole Miss wins. I think it's going to be really close. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I do think the difference is going to be Chambliss being just a better overall quarterback than Stockton. I just think there's something about it combined with that attitude of we want to win this for our new head coach. I take Ole Miss in this one. I do think it's going to be low scoring, but I'm going to go like 24 to like 18 or 19.
All right. Well, we put the jinx on because I think we agreed on all 4 games.
Yeah, so it's for sure the other 4 teams are going to
win. John Stretch in the chat room says Indiana 17-14. Come and get a lobster roll on the house, Rick. I like that kind of talk, Stretch. I might just do that. Appreciate you chiming in there. We also have a Douglas Durner sighting in the chat room. Always love hearing from Doug. Good morning. Here near Branch Field for the New Mexico Bowl, North Texas, baby. Getting it in. A little biased, but Cameron Donor, #1 ranked draft eligible FBS wide receiver for Pro Football Focus intermediate routes. 50 catches, 845, 6 touchdowns. And we have our eye on Cam Dorner. And I always appreciate the feedback, Doug. And we were just awaiting some verified measurements to get him on the board officially as we expand our big board and list the top draft eligible wide receivers. But we definitely have our eye on Cam Dorner, and we'll be tuned in to the New Mexico Bowl, keeping an eye on that young man and his next level prospects. All right. Russ Lande, Ric Serritella, we're just about through the hour of power here. Anything else you wanted to get in? Michigan has a new head man with Kyle Whittingham. Any thoughts there, Russ?
Firstly, I don't think they could have. I mean, I know it's strange how it unfolded because of all the different names that were thrown in the mix. I don't know, but I'm just guessing they probably didn't even know that Kyle was a choice when this whole process began because he had stepped down at Utah after an unbelievable 21-year run. I have a feeling they probably thought it couldn't be done to get a guy like him, but to get a guy like him another guy, I've only met Kyle once or twice, and I don't even know where it was. I may have shook his hand and said hello, and that's it. So I don't know him from a hole in the wall. But from the scouts that I know that have been going through that school for the last 20 years, they say you are not going to get a better human being, a guy who's going to put his students sort of not just the players on their success on the field, but their success as adults and growing and maturing into men. He's going to always put that first, which I think is something that Michigan right now, after Harbaugh and Moore, they need someone who's going to focus on not just winning football games, but getting the program just a little more stable. I think it's just been a little bit upheaval the last 4 or 5 years, even though Coach Harbaugh won and was successful. I think they want more stability. I think he's going to bring that. I think he's going to really help that program. I'm excited to see where it goes. Even though I've not been a Michigan quote-unquote person in terms of always saying they're the best team, I want to see them be successful. I think when they're winning, college football is better, just like when the Bears and Giants are winning, the NFL is better. So I think it's a great hire. I'm excited to see what he does. I have a feeling they'll probably make some significant, if not complete changes to the entire structure of how Michigan's front office and coaching staff is set up. Because I think he's going to want to make sure he has his people that carry his sort of moral, ethical sort of belief system in how you develop a program. I think he's going to bring that to Michigan. I'm excited to see what he does.
Would you say this is a stopgap hire, 66 years old? I know he signed a 5-year deal, but it almost feels like, hey, let's bring in Whittingham. Let's stable the ship and go and get the next guy. Do you sense any of that at all?
I think part of it could be that, but I think a bigger part could be, hey, let's bring in a guy who we know is going to get our program back on a strong foundation, and we're going to have him help us. If we're winning, obviously, all this debate. If they go 4 or 5 wins the next 3 years, doesn't matter what happens. But if they're winning 9, 10, 11 games, going to the playoffs a few times, I think they want Kyle to build that foundation so that one of his assistants can take over and he can be sort of an advisor and that then the program can keep going. Yes, I get that. Trust me. I think that's a legitimate question by people bringing in someone that's 66 that actually a lot of people that I spoke to thought had actually, when he stepped from Utah, they thought he was done. Like
Yeah.
he wasn't even going to really even be a part of the program. They thought he was going to ride off into the sunset. So it could very well be that that thought process is in people's heads. But this guy's never, ever been unsuccessful. He will get that program over the next 3 years in the right place. And then I think it will come down to, has one of his assistants proven to the higher ups at Michigan that they can be the long term replacement when Kyle leaves in 4 or 5 years. It's never easy when you're bringing in someone that's never been at a blue blood school and saying, all right, go ahead and win. The challenges at a place like Michigan are at a level that nobody understands. Places like Michigan, Ohio State, it's undaunting, the pressure from day one. And that's something few coaches understand. So that's the big question to me about Kyle. I think everything else, it's going to be a slam dunk. I think this guy's a great hire.
Yeah, well, the challenge begins right now because the transfer portal opens in about 5 days, and
Yeah, it's crazy.
keeping Bryce Underwood is going to be priority number uno for Kyle
I
Whittingham.
have a feeling they've already spoken for a few hours.
Yeah. All right, Russ Lande, Ric Serritella putting a ribbon on the show. Before we wrap things up, Russ, the SMWW Football Career Conference is coming up at the NFL Scouting Combine. It's going to be February 26th and 27th this year. And I'm excited. It's an event I've been a part of for well over a decade. Educational panels, networking. If you work in football, if you aspire to work in football, you're going to really expand your horizons, gain valuable knowledge, and really meet people that you're going to be connected to throughout your career, throughout your lifelong journey. I know you've been a guest speaker on the panel numerous times. And of course, you can go over to smww.com and check the menu bar for events, football career conference. If you sign up now, you save $150 if you buy your ticket before January 1st. So make sure you do that. Tell them Rick sent you. But Russ, talk about the football career conference experience.
Well, first again, I've been teaching for them for almost 18 years now, and I've been at the conference probably 15 of those years. I think the unique thing about the conference, and I want to preface this by saying the conference is very, very beneficial for people who are able to get out there and meet people. If you have the personality where you can introduce yourself to people and stuff like that, this can be an unbelievable job career event because you have the opportunity not only at the conference will have anywhere from 300 to 500 people, depending on how many people actually show up and weather and all that. So you'll be able to make great contacts there. And the people that are speakers, whether they're the football panel, the analytics panel, the marketing, for all these people are NFL, college executives that can give you great insight into careers, into if you really want to go into these careers. So you can make great contacts. But in addition, you're in Indianapolis for 2 days during the NFL Combine. You have an opportunity, if you have that type of personality, to venture out and also meet other people that are in town, college coaches, NFL scouts. So it's a double bonus if you have that outgoing personality to meet people, really beneficial for both making connections and learning from the different panels, different ways to go about building your career. Very beneficial. Like I said, I've been going for almost 15, 16 years. I've been to this almost every year. It's a great experience. Every time I go, when I get back, I get these emails. Oh my God, it was an unbelievable experience. I met these people. I've been talking to this person. I can't thank you enough for how much you helped me, introducing me. So it is a great experience. Everybody that's ever gone has always been positive about it. Never had anybody say, oh, I shouldn't have gone. And most conferences, half the people that go were disappointed. This one, everybody that's ever gone that's relayed to me, they had a great time.
Well worth the price of admission. Go to smww.com under events, the football career conference. Again, if you get your ticket before January 1st, you save $150 off your ticket. Our good friend Brian Baldinger of NFL Network is going to also be on one of the speaking panels, as is Adam Schefter of ESPN. I'll also be involved out there in Indianapolis, February 26th to the 27th. All right, for Russ Lande, Ric Serritella, this was the All Access Football Show. We're going to say goodbye to Russ. I'm going to go over some of the things happening over on the allaccessfootball.com website. Russ, we'll come back next week. We'll talk about the semifinals of the college football playoff. I'm sure we'll have a lot to discuss. Enjoy the football action and stay warm out there in Chi-Town.
Sounds good, brother. As always, I appreciate you having me a part of the AAF everything going on football experience.
Absolutely. That's Russ Lande saying goodbye. And of course, he mentioned the All Access Football Experience. Well, hey, we've got our own holiday blowout sale going on. If you're into the NFL draft, we're 117 days away. What I can promise you is nobody's going to give you more updates between now and the next 117 days as we count you down to Destination Pittsburgh. And why is that, Rick? Well, because we're banging you and bopping you each and every day with updates. We're tracking the underclassmen. January 14th is the deadline. January 23rd for the two teams in the FBS championship, which means what? Well, there's about 2.5 weeks left, and we've got 42 players who have declared in terms of our count. Now, we've also got the unofficial, official All-Star Game tracker for the Senior Bowl, the East-West Shrine Bowl, the American Bowl, the Hula Bowl. We'll be on location at all of these events. Now, we've tracked down, I think, 325 confirmed invites thus far between the four events. You can find that at the NFL Draft headquarters on the menu bar at allaccessfootball.com. We've got over 1,000 players rated, verified measurements, projections. The scouting reports continue to flow each and every day. The front office Draft Bible scouting department is doing a phenomenal job. Big shout out to all those guys and women, Lauren Davidoff, Dom Ambrose, Will Donahue, Jarrett Regal, Ryan Paglia. They're burning the midnight oil. They're going around the clock. We're going to have over 500 scouting reports at least in the official 2026 NFL Draft Bible. It's our 24th edition there. And of course, part of the All Access Football subscription is you get access to all of our insider content and the NFL Draft Bible publication. So if you want to be in the know, if you want to be well prepared, if you want to have all those evaluations from our all-Star Game circuit analysis, our combine confidential, our pro day trails. Brian Baldinger is going to jump on and be a part of our draft coverage once the Super Bowl wraps up, and he'll be down there at the Hula Bowl and the American Bowl and the Senior Bowl with me. We'll be giving you updates each and every day during the practice week, and that's what we do here at the allaccessfootball.com. Doug Dorner's in the chat room talking about Cam Dorner at North Texas. Well, we got the mid-major tracker as well. So the non-Power 4 prospects, you can go and consume scouting reports on hundreds, if not thousands, of players on the NFL draft radar. So we don't ask much here at the allaccessfootball.com, but we do appreciate those who support independent media. Again, it's our 24th NFL draft cycle of doing this. And, we've gone over an hour here on the air. Again, I didn't ask for a lot, but if you don't mind smashing the like button, sharing our show and our program so you can help us thrive and you can help us grow and nurture and expand, we appreciate that. So just a quick favor, click that like, share it, subscribe it. If you like the show, we're here each and every Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We'll be adding shows throughout the draft season. Brian Baldinger will be doing a weekly show with me. And, of course, we got the Scout Honors podcast of Dave Del Cole is tuned in and watching. I'm sure he is. We'll have all kinds of draft podcasts. Of course, the QB Huddle each and every Tuesday. That happens to pop up in the All Access Football report every Wednesday. We've also got Scouting the League. Our good friend Neil Stratton and Roderick David do a phenomenal job peeling back the layers of the onion and taking you inside the NFL draft process. And, of course, today we just posted the bowl game primer for today. 7 bowl games in action today on Saturday, December 27th. We've got you covered over on the website with that as well. We'll continue to preview the prospects for the bowl game season. We'll come back next week and talk about the college football playoffs. We'll have reactions, we'll have predictions, but more importantly, we'll have prospect previews. All right. So I want to thank Russ Lande for joining us once again for another wonderful show. Can't thank him enough for lending us his time And of course, I was Ric Serritella here as we buckle up and hunker down for these winter month. We got a half foot of snow that I shoveled out just this morning. So we're going to hold our breath here and hopefully let me watch football in peace. Love all the chat room feedback. Hopefully we can get that going a little bit more as we count you down to Destination Pittsburgh. Again, 117 days to the NFL draft, and allaccessfootball.com has got you covered. We'll see you next time out there, everybody.